Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. This week, I'm sorry, I'm always laughing at this because it is a good friend of mine. That seems to be that's why I like to do this, because I have good friends of mine on the show. And this time it's Kim Stuck, and Kim is the founder of Allay Consulting, and they do some amazing work in the cannabis and hemp industry. We're going to get into a little bit of that. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, I wanna know how you got from bartender to being the first ever cannabis regulator, which I always love that title, for the state of Colorado. How did that happen?
I actually think that my bartending experience has served me a whole lot in the business world, to tell you the truth. I think that people skills is so important in business, and just, you know, learning a lot about people, learning how to read people when you're a regulator. That a lot of that intuition and gut instinct came from me being a bartender, which sounds really weird. But you get trained to deal with people constantly, and have to always, be positive and have a smile on your face. And, you kind of learn how to grit through things that are really hard. So yeah, don't, bartenders are awesome.
They
But
are.
yeah, so I started as a bartender because I was actually an art school person. I actually got my associate's degree in fine arts and photography, and realized very quickly that I wasn't quite as talented as maybe to become a famous artist. And I just really like to do art. So I didn't really know what I was doing with my life, but I had to pay the bills. So I started as a server and became a bartender eventually when I became 21. And one day when I was 25 years old, I woke up and I was like, man, I want to do something different. I need to do something with my life. And at this time I was a runner. I did sports all through high school, and, just was on a couple of like a soccer team with the city. And I've always been into nutrition and health. So I decided to, just roll the dice and go to school again at the age of 25 for human nutrition. And it was a really cool degree. I actually went to Metro Denver, and it was awesome. And I'm so glad I went back to school. So I ended up getting that degree, and that degree has a whole lot of food safety classes. There's a lot, you have to learn how to cook. I had to take culinary courses, and had to take all this microbiology and, biochemistry and all this cool stuff. So that degree is a real shoe-in to become a health inspector. And I didn't realize this, but my food safety professor actually was friends with Bob McDonald over at DDPHE, and said, hey, let me introduce you to this guy. You would be great for this role because I came from industry.
Give us what's DPPHE.
Oh, Denver Department of Public Health and Environment.
Yes.
Yes.
It sounds better. DB. Now I can't say it, but it sounds better.
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in the government. I mean, it's like hard to keep up with. And so, it was great. I got a great introduction. I went in, I actually went on a ride along. You can do a ride along with a health inspector. I don't know if people know that, but you can, so that you can see what it's like. And I loved it. And I really loved restaurants because I grew up in restaurants, and I knew, I can deal with the people really well. And I know all the weird stuff that happens in restaurants. And so I was a really great health, a shoe-in for health inspection. So I got the job. I started that job 3 days after I graduated. I mean, it was just like a blessing. Like, I was so in awe that happened. And I loved the job, and I loved the department, and I still love the department. There's such great people there. And I, within 6 months of me being there, cannabis became recreationally legal. And so the entire health department was tasked. There was 9 of us at that time for the whole all of Denver County. And cannabis, they were like, okay, guys, we have to regulate the cannabis facilities now. And we were like, okay. So we started doing that. And a little while went by. I don't even remember how long. But we ended up finding things in cannabis that don't exist in other industries, right? Like there's just a whole lot of other food safety factors and cross-contamination factors. all the processes and stuff are very complicated and very different than anything we'd ever seen or dealt with. And so they, came to the decision that they needed to have an actual, actual cannabis specific health inspector. And so they gave me that title, which was awesome. I was the marijuana specialist. And it was super exciting. I was so excited about that. And then eventually there was others. Kara Laveau joined me very shortly after that. And she was my partner for a long time. And then we had a little team. There was like 5 of us. Eventually, by the time I left, there was 5 of us that were doing it pretty regularly. So it was really cool. Super weird opportunity. Never thought it would, I thinking about my life, like I think about what I do now, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if you told me that I would own my own cannabis consulting firm, I would have laughed in your face because it was just so far out of what I thought I was going to end up doing. Because originally I thought I was going to be a registered dietitian working in a hospital and now this. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been really great.
I'm curious, with your food safety background, I love that, by the way, the ride-alongs. I had no idea you do that. I kind of want to go on one now. But with that being primarily towards the restaurants and those type of things, how was it translating that skill set and what you were learning there into the production side, which is more so of what the cannabis consulting wound up being?
Yeah, so the FDA, right? They're the ones that write all the food safety laws for the entire United States. So our DDPHE regulations are based on the FDA regulations. And so that's CGMP in all manufacturing. So food safety and microbiology really goes hand in hand with all production of products, especially products that are consumable. So we work with extraction facilities, because that oil is going to be sold to edible companies and all kinds of, different things. Even when it comes to vape pens, and dabbables, which, if you know cannabis, that's it's just like a wax, if you will. And, even the flour, I mean, we've had mold issues, recalls, all kinds of weird stuff has happened. Pesticide issues. I did a whole lot of recalls for that in the beginning when I was with the health department. So, it kind of went hand in hand. Anything that you make that's consumable, it has food safety issues. You got to be able to see what can happen, how it can happen, and then do things to prevent it from happening, those bad things from happening. So yeah, it kind of fell right into it and it worked out.
So you
I think go ahead, Kim.
I was going to say, so you kind of mentioned one thing there, which was setting up my next question, I guess, that if you're getting a lot of that from the federal side, how was it in the cannabis industry where there's such, misdirections as far as the laws and such go?
Yeah, so there isn't any guideline.
I wasn't going to be quite that bold because I wasn't totally sure.
No, there isn't. There is no set guideline for food safety standards in the cannabis industry, not at a federal level, which is really annoying for anyone trying to run a cannabis company. Many jurisdictions like Denver and states, we have CDPHE and DDPHE in Colorado. And those are a local and then a state health department. That happens in every state, right? Every county has their own health department. Not everyone, if it's really rural, then the state takes over, but you have to still run by those guidelines. Many counties and state health departments don't deal with cannabis at all. So believe it or not, a lot of cannabis companies don't have any food safety inspections or regulations to follow. So that's kind of where my company comes in now. We're kind of your own personal health inspector, if you will. And we just take already existing regulations that the FDA has given us. So CFR 111 and 117 are the ones that we abide by, and we implement those in these facilities. Because, cannabis companies, they want to do good. They want to make products that are safe for people. And when they have no guidelines, and if you don't have a background in food safety, you're not going to know this stuff. This is a nerd world type thing. So they
wasn't going to call you out on that, Kim, but okay.
Little
yes,
nerd.
You said it.
But yeah, I mean, it's great because they want to do it right way. They don't understand how to, so they can just hire someone now to come in and do that for them. And, our company doesn't just cover FDA regulations. We also do OSHA, fire code as well. And then we help with certification. So if you're a CBD company, which is a hemp side, which, is federally legal, you can get organic. And then for both THC and CBD companies, you can do GMP certification and ISO certification as well. So those are the kinds of things you can do to like prove that your company is following guidelines, that you're making a safe product. So it's pretty cool.
You've talked around it a little bit, but what I think is really interesting is the fact that it's a completely new industry that had been black market, right? So nothing, and then somebody walked by, your boss, when you were a regular, walked by and said, "Hey, Kim, this we got to do something about this cannabis thing. Like for you to take it." Well, how'd you start that? I mean, because literally there was nothing, right? So
Yeah.
how'd you start that? What was your mindset process to get through that?
Well, I've been doing the restaurants for a little while, and as a human being, I like to learn new things. I like change. For some reason, I thrive in that space where I'm constantly learning and doing new things and, that kind of thing. And if you have that kind of personality, when an opportunity like this comes up to do something a little different and really interesting, you kind of jump for it. And at that time, there is a huge bias against cannabis. And I don't think that any of the other inspectors, they were doing their job, like they were going to do it. But nobody really volunteered to take that on. Nobody was jumping at it, and I was. And thankfully, I had excellent leadership there. I mean, the bosses that I had were just so cool. And they were like, "You want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, please, like sign me up, whatever I can do. I would love to be part of the cannabis, team or whatever." And they were like, "Okay, it's yours. Like, let's do it." And I was like, so excited about it. And everyone thought I was crazy because it was really hard work, because there wasn't a set of regulations. You had to take every single situation and then analyze that situation and kind of figure it out and learn. If it weren't for the industry, I wouldn't know anything. Thank God people let me into their facilities and like walked me around and explained it all to me. But, I had to take everything, and everything was different in each facility too. Like it's not the same, like in every facility. Everybody has different things that are going on. They're making different products. They have different processes. So you really have to like pay attention. So yeah, it's weird. It was fun.
It sounds like it. I mean, anytime you get to create something from scratch on your own and have that freedom, I mean, that's awesome that you were in this great leadership environment where they allowed you to go out and figure it out and, fall on your face a couple of times and support you when you did and make wrong decisions. So that doesn't happen a whole heck of a lot in both situations. I mean, in the leadership environment and in the, "Hey, we don't know. Go ahead, Kim, we trust you. Make something."
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I realized that department just did so many great things for me, because they let you figure it out, and they trusted me to make decisions. And even if I made the wrong decision, they still had my back and we figured it out. So, and I think that's, that leadership from the beginning was one of the things that made me want to be a leader. So it's always nice. Good to have good leadership.
Well, one of the things I think is so interesting, watching the cannabis market in different states as things grow, and with hemp as well. And it's actually the problem that's forecasted for Arizona now that legalization is coming here, is the lack of the ancillary businesses. And I think the really interesting thing is like how you were able to solve that kind of problem for folks on the consulting side, not just in the regulation side. And because from my perspective down here, I've worked with farms here in Arizona, and for not for hemp or cannabis, but gone through their GIP-GAP program down here, which is good handling practice, good agricultural practices. And I got a 10-page checklist that I went through and did that. And it honestly was really annoying and a lot, but I had a checklist the whole time. I can only imagine what it would be like being in an industry there where you don't have any sort of this guidance and you're going, making it up as you go from the farmer side. That's got to be terrible. So I can really see how there was that huge pain point that you were able to assess and then move into as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is that I had the experience from a regulator point of view. So when I read a set of regulations, my brain interprets it differently than normal people reading. I mean, that sounds really strange, but it's so true. When you get used to reading really intense regulations, you pick up on the nuances of what they're really getting at. Because a lot of times, a regulator will ask a question to you, and it's an open-ended question because they want to dig, they want to see what the real answer is. And people freak out because they're like, I don't know what they want to hear. I don't know what and I do. And I can explain to them, okay, if they ask you this question, this is how you should answer, because this is what they're looking for. And same with the regulations. This is what this is actually asking you to do. And also I can explain the why to them, which is always, really important. If they don't understand, I hate the do this just because we said so mentality does not work very well when implementing procedures. So, just understanding, why they have to do that and what it's preventing and how it's, solving a problem, if you will. It helps. It really does. So, thankfully we have that background and it's exciting. I don't know.
Well, and I think that one of the things you touch on there that's so useful in just all businesses and things is when you understand the why behind something, you're able to extrapolate that to more things. And because you understood the why, it was a lot easier to go, okay, well, they might not have said this, but I know what they were really meaning behind it. And so you can kind of fill in those blanks, which is especially important if you're, not getting the full layout like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I've got like 4 of them that I'm rolling in my head. So it's like, which one, random one. No, they're not really random, but I'm curious, what was the catalyst? I mean, you had a pretty cushy job. You loved it. You were in the government. I mean, for anybody that hasn't worked for the government, I mean, it was the Army, but it was the government. I got a paycheck and I had to really screw up pretty bad to not get that paycheck for as long as I wanted that paycheck. And then you just kind of went, yeah, this is too easy. This stuff, getting a paycheck for doing stuff I like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go out and start a business. What was that little catalyst, or what happened there?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision. It took a lot of me thinking I was crazy and being like, why would I leave? Because you get pension, you get benefits, you get all the good stuff with a government job. And like you said, I loved everyone I worked with. The team at DDPHE are some of the most intelligent and amazing people I've ever worked with. In fact, when I gave them my 2 weeks, I started crying. Like I was so upset. And I loved it there. But the aha moment that I had was I was in a hearing with a gentleman that owned a cannabis company, and I had fined him around $4,000 or $5,000 because of one little thing that he couldn't get fixed. Over and over and over, I would show up and keep fining him, right? So it ended up adding up significantly. And he was here and he was in tears. He was so upset. And it was because it was a $5 part for a sink. That's all he needed to do to solve this issue. But as a regulator, when you work for the government, you are, because of liability issues, you are not allowed to give them the solution. You have to state the regulation, and the onus is on them to become compliant with that regulation. You aren't allowed to say, hey, this is the part you need. Go to Home Depot, it's $10, put that on there and you'll be good. You can't do that. And you're not allowed to do that. There's a very fine line between being that's what they always said. You're a regulator, you're not a consultant. You're a regulator, you're not a consultant. And it killed me. It killed me because I fell in love with this industry. I fell in love with the people there. And I just wanted to help so bad. And I had the moment of like, I could have solved all of this guy's issue with one sentence out of my mouth, and I wasn't able to do it. How can I help this industry more? How can I be better to this industry and to these people that need help? Because as you kind of mentioned before, many of these people did not come from a business background or a food safety background or a manufacturing background. Most of them came from growing weed in their basement for the last 40 years. Most of them, they know everything about cannabis, but they don't know anything about running a business or regulations or being, audited. And I was, I actually, talked to a bunch of people and, went to a couple of mentors and just said, what do you think of this? Do you think I could do this? And they're like, yeah, you should. And I got a lot of support from, my friends and family, thankfully. And my husband was amazing. I don't know. I thought I was insane, but, he was super supportive of it. And so that's what I did. I went to the ethics board at DDPHE, make sure I was doing everything the right way, signed an NDA with them, and started my own company. And, from there, it just kind of got bigger and bigger. So I don't know. I think that looking back, that one moment of just like seeing that guy in such distress and so upset just because I couldn't tell him one thing, that was like the moment that I was like, I need to do better. I need to do something better. So that's what did it.
So what would have happened if you told him? I mean, that's kind of a dilemma. I mean, I can see the dilemma and, your boss saying, don't do this, you can't do this, but I'm kind of curious, so what would have happened if you told him?
I think if I would have told him, it probably would have been okay, but they train you really not to. Because let's say for instance, if I said, hey, just get this part, it'll be fine. And he accidentally got the wrong part, or I gave him the wrong part, or, whatever, lost in translation. And then another regulator came back like a week later and saw that and said, oh, you're out of compliance. He could sue the city for me giving him bad advice. Yeah. And I think that's a very like weird, that's not a really great example, but yeah, I mean, if it were, especially if it were something that was finable and, if it could cost him a lot of money, if I told him the wrong thing, and I just think that, they play it safe. The government plays it safe when that kind of thing happens. In fact, we have a really great relationship with regulators in several different states where the regulator will be like, you need to call your consultant and I need to talk to your consultant right now. And then they'll tell me what's going on and then I can translate and then I can tell them what to do, because that's a whole different thing. Because then the onus is on me. If I, as a consultant, you have really great insurance to cover anything that might go wrong and things like that. And a regulator doesn't, so it just makes sense. It's kind of sad that it has to be that way because we're such a sue happy country. But it is, and I don't blame them, it's not their fault, but yeah, that's why consultants exist, I think.
Well, how did you go from, I'm laughing because I'm thinking should have just been KC Incorporated, Kim's Consulting, that's so, but you decided to make a business out of it. What happened? Why did you say, let's grow this, let's bring in friends and people well? What was that?
So it kind of just happened organically. I thought it was just going to be me on my own because all I wanted to do was do something that I loved and make enough money to pay my bills, like honestly, and be able to take a vacation every once in a while. And at first.
So naive.
Yeah, that's a joke. So I started off, got my first few clients, started doing good, started juggling other things, and then ended up getting so busy within, 4 or 5 months of owning the company that I was working 7 days a week, 13 hours a day. And I was getting a lot done and it was great. And I was making good money. I was super happy about that. But I realized that my mental health was not going to be great if I kept this up for this long. And my marriage wasn't going to be great. And my relationships with my friends, because they would be like, are you coming out on Saturday night? And I'd be like, no, I got to work on Sunday. There's no way, and, you need to think about the fact that you're working to live and you're not living to work. And I had to make that like mental decision. So then I was like, well, how am I going to do this? So I put an ad out on LinkedIn, and was just like, maybe I'll find someone, I can train someone to do what I do. It's as long as they have some kind of either cannabis or, regulatory background, I can train them to know what I know. That's not a problem. And it was like the stars aligned, because my very good friend, Kelsey Hanley, who actually used to work for me, or not for me, but with me at DDPHE, she was part of my marijuana team, or at the time marijuana team. And she applied, and I was like shocked. Oh my gosh, like I didn't even know she was looking for another job. And of course I, interviewed her, which was a joke, and, and hired her, on the spot. And she was my first hire. She took so much off my plate. I mean, it was like a breath of fresh air. I think it was about 8 months after hiring her, I got to take my first weekend off ever. And it was just so great. And I was like, okay, like, let's do this. And then me and Kelsey got so busy that we were working too much. And so we hired someone else, and now we're a team of 5. So, and now we have the Denver office still. And now I'm in Portland, Oregon at the Portland office. So it's really interesting how it grew. It was almost like I didn't have a choice. But I kind of sometimes feel like I created a company so that me and my friends can essentially live our best life. We just hang out all the time and, work and make more money, or try to make more money, and, do something that we actually love, which so many people, don't get to do. So we love it. It's cool.
Last time I checked, I think that's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Kim, did you freeze up there? Okay.
No, I thought you had one though.
Well, that was it. Last time I checked.
Well, I was curious. So as you're going through there, one thing you kind of just said was that you felt like you're being pushed through it, or kind of pulled along in that sense. Do you think that was just the opening of the market? Do you think it was because you were doing what you love, combination thereof? What do you think?
I think a lot of it had to do with my knowledge base, and my reputation. Even when I was a regulator, people, even though some people didn't like me, because I was a regulator, for the most part, people liked me. I had a good relationship with all of the people that I regulated. And I really did try to help. And just like I said, I had a deep passion for the industry that just kind of like came from nowhere, because I didn't even know that industry would exist, and yeah, just my passion for everything. When you like something, when you wake up every day and you're like, yes, like this is what I want to do, you tend to get more done. You tend to be more productive and talk to more people and network more. I mean, you guys have come to my happy hours. They're crazy. And so, when you like doing something, I think you just tend to kind of roll with it. And then, yeah, I just ended up being more busy than I thought I would be. And we're the only people in the industry that I know of that do exactly what we do. So, not having any competition for the first, year and a half also kind of helped. I'm not going to lie. Now we definitely do have competition, but we're obviously very friendly with them, because there is so much work out there that it's like, we need more GMP consultants. We need more people that can do OSHA, and more people, so it's not a big deal, because, it's not pie. There's not a limited amount of work out there that, and money out there and success. If we all work together and all help this industry, I'd rather have the industry do well, than not have any competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you touched on one of my favorite things, and that's there's always more pie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to slice it thin. I can go harvest some from an orchard. I can go plant an orchard and make more pie. So I think that's a great attitude to have, because it actually leads into what I was thinking. My next question really was, you started off, it was a blue ocean, right? You were the only one, 18 months ish plus. Mm-hmm. You were the only one doing this thing. And now the industry is kind of starting to mature a little bit. I wouldn't call it quite a red ocean, but you're in that sort of sense of things are shifting a little bit. You look over, hey, there's Bob and there's Joe, and they're kind of doing the same thing. So now what do you do? How are you staying out in front?
You know, I think that, well, I think for us, we're at the point, you know, we've been in business for a little over 3 years now. And that's still a very new business. But we have great customer service. I think one of the biggest complaints about consultants that I hear in our industry is that, oh, they were condescending, or they were rude, or they wouldn't pick up the phone when I called. Like, they wouldn't get back to me. We actually had someone leave us and go work with someone else for a little while. Within 2 months, they came back and they were like, yeah, we'd send them an email or call them, and they wouldn't get back to us for 2 weeks. Like, how do you get something done? So we really pride ourselves in, like, our clients are our family. We love them. We will do anything to get them to be successful. And whether that's working with us or working with someone else, that's okay. And we've just found that our customer service level is really what keeps people coming back. You know, we have clients that I had, you know, my first client I've ever had is still a client to this day. And we've had contracts that we've ended because we've gotten done with a project, but they still call me and we do little things for them. And then they'll sign another retainer contract because, oh, we opened a new place in this state and we need GMP certification here. Or, you know, we got to set up OSHA because OSHA is starting to knock on doors. And, you know, it's really cool because every time they need something, they know they can trust me. You know, our prices haven't changed. We're not going to like spring anything weird on them. And, you know, they'll come back. And I think that that's what, you know, truly running a solid consulting business is about, is making sure that trust is there, and, you know, really knowing your stuff and just trying as hard as you can to make your client successful. You know, that's the end goal. We're all trying to get to that same goal. Everyone just does it, you know, can do it differently. So it's pretty cool. I love it.
You know, I think there's lots of different ways that the cannabis and hemp industry are very different, of course, you know, with the history and all, you know, the rapid changes and all this kind of different stuff. One aspect of that we haven't quite touched on that I'm really interested in is kind of just the communication side of, really, you're kind of having to play public relations on two different fronts, I think, if you really think about it. For one, just the general taboo of the industry, you're going to wind up fighting that battle no matter what. I remember when I was looking to start up in Colorado, and I talk with people down here, it's one of those, you really can't be in the industry and not fight that battle. I think you're naive to think that you can just go and just do your own thing. You have to fight that taboo the whole time. But then the other side of that also is, because of the history as a black market, you have poor communication and things inside the industry itself, where it's almost, you know, I would say fractioned to some extent, and you don't have that general communication and sharing of ideas and type of things that you get inside other industries. So what has it been like kind of playing public relations on the internal side of the industry and the external side? Because like I said, I don't think you'd be able to avoid it with what you're doing.
Yeah. And our company is really funny too, because we, you know, I personally do a lot of work with governments. You know, I train regulators in different states, because if you're a regulator and you know nothing about cannabis, it's hard to regulate cannabis. And I help a lot of different states, you know, write their regulations and figure out, like, hey, this is what they do in Michigan. This is what they do in California. This is, you know, let's figure out what's going to work for your state. So, you know, getting those regulators to get rid of their bias is, you know, that's important. Because if you're biased against something, you know, it's really hard to work with people if you have a, you know, you're afraid of cannabis or you don't like it or whatever. So that's always interesting. And then, you know, just like you said, I mean, there is a huge bias in the industry, and there's a lot of things that people don't think about. Try running a business without a bank account, for instance. I've been kicked out of 3 banks. QuickBooks won't let me use payment processing. PayPal has kicked me out. Like, it is almost unbelievable the amount of BS that I've had to go through because I'm a cannabis company, and I don't have a cannabis license. I don't touch the plant. I'm literally just there reviewing regulations and training people. And it's, you know, I think people outside of the industry don't realize that that's the struggle that these cannabis companies are dealing with every day. And yeah, there is a huge bias. In fact, I will, even on LinkedIn, I'm a huge LinkedIn fan. And I've had people write in the comments like, oh, I didn't realize that you were a weed dealer. Like, I don't want to follow you anymore. Like, it's crazy. I'm just like, guys, like, it's legal. And I'm definitely not a weed dealer. That's not, I don't even own a company. It's so silly. But, that's the kind of stuff we're up against. And I think it's just something that you're constantly fighting. And then, just like you say, Camden, or what you said, the industry also, the people that are in it usually came from the black market.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very untrusting. They do not trust regulators. They don't trust, anybody who's coming into their facility. They all have trade secrets, the secret sauce of their product that they don't want to share with anyone, even though they have to some regulators and obviously consultants. I'm under super strict NDAs all the time, which I don't mind at all. I totally understand. It's just, there is a lack of trust. People do not share information between each other. And it does put a huge barrier up for the industry, because if we all worked together and, came up with, a common way to do things or efficiencies or whatever, it would benefit the industry, but I still think we're quite a ways off from that, unfortunately.
Well, I agree. And I think that's an interesting thing of the secret sauce, as you put it, because I know that's something, as I've talked with, different people in the industry in Arizona and Colorado, all the different farmers kind of to get into the ag side of things. And they'll all have something they do that they swear is the reason theirs is so much better and it grows so much faster. And I kind of sit back a lot. I think, so all three of y'all are doing something different and you're all three getting the same effects. I wonder if you guys could just talk and maybe do all three of those things or whatever it is. And it's like, gosh, there's so much potential there. But that's from the outside looking in. You're looking at the big industry and trying to, like you said, just grow the pie instead of trying to get our piece. And that's a, different mindset there. But, have you seen much change in that mindset as things have been growing, as it's been legalized longer and longer, where people are kind of starting to shed that secrecy and type of thing?
Yeah, so more on the farmer side than the manufacturing side. But yeah, I mean, there are states where the price of cannabis has dropped through the floor. And so we have found that farmers are developing groups, if you will, that will, grow a certain way, or, learn how to grow it cheaper, or, price a certain way, or, whatever they need to do to try to keep that market, afloat, so that everybody can survive this, until they can sell across state lines and things like that. Because it's a very limited, when you can only grow and sell in your state, that's a limited market. I mean, very easily it becomes oversaturated. And a lot of governments don't think about that kind of thing and just gave licenses to everyone. Like Oklahoma, they issued so many licenses, like thousands of licenses. That's going to very quickly become a battle for everyone that's there because of the oversaturation. And then there are other, Colorado put, a cap on it. We're only allowing this many licenses. If you don't get a license, you're SOL. And that's just the way it is. But every state is different. Even in like New York, and then there's like weird barriers to entry. Like in New York, to get, and this is on the hemp side, we work with both. To get a CBD product license in New York, you have to have GMP certification on a facility before you can even get the license, which costs around $100,000 to do. I mean, it is like from beginning to end. And not only that, but you have to have a facility that's sitting there while you're getting GMP certification, because it takes about 6 months at least to get that certification and implement everything, that you're paying rent on the whole time, and not making any money. So it's really interesting, different states, different counties, all have their weird barrier to entry, that they don't really think about how it's hindering our economy in the cannabis space. It's really weird. And as much as I love that they want GMP certification, they could have written it differently so that you could be making money while going through the process of and things like that. But, they didn't think that through. But yeah, it's just really, it's a weird world, and in every state and every county is like totally different when it comes to the rules and licensing and things like that. So it's a challenge for sure.
Well, it's interesting because what you described, that how they regulate it in New York, is pretty much the way it is for the distilling industry. You got to build it all and then get it all put together and get it all set up, and then sit around and wait for the government to come say, yep. So yeah, I can see how they did that, unfortunately. But that leads to where I really want to know, because what happens when it's deregulated? Because that's the talk of the town right now, right? With President Biden coming in and different Congress, everybody's talking about, a complete, maybe complete, decriminalization of the whole thing. Not even just changing it from a Schedule A to a different schedule, but across the board. So what happens then?
So I get asked this question all the time, because
I bet
most people think that means it's legal. It does not at all. In fact, nothing will really change, to tell you the truth. Decriminalization just means if you have a certain amount on you or below a certain amount, you don't go to prison, right? And I'm hoping that people who are in prison will be released as well, right? That's the whole goal, and I think that that's a great goal. But when you talk about Biden doing it, that's on a federal level. So that's only people who were in federal violation of this law that can be released. The states still have 100% control of how they're going to handle cannabis. So if Idaho, which is one of the least cannabis-friendly states in the nation, if they decide that they don't want to decriminalize there and they don't want to release anyone, they won't. They don't have to. So it would still be, based on the state and what they want to do. It would allow more states to be able to legalize much easier. It would also possibly help with the banking, because, it depends on the banks. This is all dependent on the banks, but they could be like, well, it's decriminalized, so now we can bank these companies without a problem. Same with credit cards and things like that. They're also MasterCard and stuff won't work with cannabis because of that that Schedule 1. So if they decriminalize and that goes away, it could change some things, but it's not going to change a huge amount. I feel like people in states that are not legal are like, oh my gosh, that's going to be so great. It'll be legalized. And I'm like, no, it won't. It really won't change anything other than on a federal level. And it will, it'll open up stuff. I think it'll help investors make decisions because if you're an investor in a cannabis company, right now, if it's federally illegal, that's some risk. It'll take away a little bit of the risk for investors, which I think will be really great for the industry and great for the investors, because it's a great place to put your money. And then, it'll also make it easier for states to just be like, okay, we'll just legalize then, like no big deal. But there is no magic button that just will make it legalized in every state. It's not that way, because each state, it's just like liquor, right? The liquor laws in Colorado are very different than the liquor laws in Oregon. I remember when you couldn't buy liquor on Sundays, and things like that. Every state is different. And so that's the same way it's going to be. They can't just tell the state you have to have legal weed, you can't. So I don't know that. Yeah, I hope that helped. It's kind of vague, but
no, that's great information. I appreciate you explaining that, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are going, oh, when they hear that too. So what's next with the lay? Go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna say, it's just like everybody when it passes in a certain state, you read about all the idiots that go outside smoking and get arrested. It's like, come on.
Yeah, you can't smoke it in public, guys. Just because it's
matter.
legal. Yeah, it's so funny.
Well, yeah, that must not be enforced, because I've been on many a street corner in Denver, and it's just like
priorities.
people are standing next to me waiting for the light to change. Yeah, he wasn't smoking a Camel cigarette. I can tell you. So what's next with Allay? I mean, 3 years of business. You've done really great. You've profited. What's the next step? What are y'all looking at?
Gosh, we're trying to just stay alive right now. 2020, it's gonna hurt our economy no matter what. So right now, me and my team are just binding together and, trying to stay afloat through all of this. So far, we're doing great. But I'm conservative, so I save a lot of money and don't spend a lot of money. And so, I think we'll be fine, but we're definitely ready for some hardships this next year, just because, people are losing their businesses and, people are unemployed. And even if the cannabis industry is still doing good, the economy, when the whole economy is suffering, no matter what, small businesses suffer, no matter what you're doing. And so, we'll just see how it goes. But we are looking into some new prospects. We actually have a press release probably coming out this month that I'm not really allowed to talk about. But we have some cool stuff coming. Yeah, we have some cool stuff coming. We are expanding into other markets. And, we're hoping, I don't know if we're going to hire any more people in 2021, but, you never know. If we get super busy for some reason, then we might have to. But right now, I love where we're at. I'm so happy that we have the team that we have. And we're just hoping to make it through and thrive and help as many companies as possible to be compliant and happy and, doing good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for telling us that you have a press release coming out too that you can't release now, but you will release it so you'll let us know when that happens too. Make sure.
Yes.
All right. I'm sure I'll see it on LinkedIn too. So
probably. Yep.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Kim, and I want to shift gears a little bit and what we learn, and not in a collective sense, but each individual of us, and Camden. No. So I know you were thinking because you're friends with Kim too, that you'd get, first billing on this today, but no, not today. And
the mental war games that you play on me when I'm not even trying, it just makes it so much more confusing. I don't even try to anticipate it, but every episode you come in and just mean mug me and figure it out.
Right. You never know. You never know which way it's going to go. That's right. That's why you always got to be prepared, right?
There we go.
Yeah. Well, and really mine was this beautiful education that Kim just gave us right there just a couple of minutes ago about national deregulation. They don't mean nothing. So there's still a whole lot that's got to. So all you folks that are holding out for President Biden to come in and sign an executive order, be patient. Be patient. I learned that. Not that I was going to run out and smoke a doobie as soon as that happened, but now I know that if I was thinking about doing that, I ain't going to do that. I'm going to hold off on that. So, Kim, what'd you learn?
Kim or Cam?
Kim, you're right. That sounded that's funny. Yes. How about Kimberly?
Yeah, there we go. So I mean, I think that when I was talking, you come to certain realizations, like when you're talking about something, and I was talking about the leadership and how, great leadership kind of inspired me to be a leader. And I think that that's something that I didn't really think about before, but I kind of learned it today, right now, that, being a good leader is making more leaders. And I think that that's kind of a cool thing to realize. And I hope that, the leaders that led me to be a leader, and now I can lead more people to be leaders in my company as well. And I think that that's pretty cool. I don't know. I just feel like that's a neat thing.
That's great.
Did y'all link up before this?
Huh?
Did you talk before this? Because that's about the fifth Otisism I've heard paraphrased.
No.
Yeah, I slipped her an email. I said, "Here, say these things."
Say these things, yeah.
Oh well. I was gonna say what I learned was really just the importance of thriving on change. And you mentioned that, really quickly at the beginning. And then as we kept asking questions and you kept going through the journey more and more, and we started talking about the future, it was so clear how important that is to you. And I think that, taking a lesson from 2020, things are really hard to predict. We're not good at predicting the future as people, and you got to be ready for change no matter what. So even if you're somebody who doesn't seem to like change or kind of averse to change, you might want to start working on that as best you can.
Yeah.
Great. Kim, how do folks learn more about Allay and get in touch with you? Do they need some help with their business?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's at www.allay consulting.com. All of our stuff is up there. We've got a whole bunch of blogs and articles and stuff like that for people to peruse. Even if you're not in the industry and you want to know a little bit about it, you can go there and check it out. And then we do have our contact info on there. So if you want to get a consultation or talk to any of my team, you can definitely do it through there.
That's awesome. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking time this morning and sharing that knowledge that very few people have about what's going on in the cannabis industry, that insight. So thank you very much. Camden, burn us out.
All right. Thank you all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to Kim Stuck for joining us today, and to our sponsors, Tribe and Purpose and Verbi Virtual Events. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotishow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.